Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out Sigmar, Hero, God, Barbarian by PancreasNowork. Yes guys, this has been recommended to me a ton, mostly by Mr. BattleChicken. He has been spamming me with those requests every single day, which is what I like to see. So yes, we are going to be, of course, checking this video out here today. I told you I would be checking it out before the week's end. So of course, that's what we're going to be doing here today, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I do not know much about the lore about the fantasy side of Warhammer. If you've watched my videos, you know I'm mostly checking out 40k, but I'm not shy to check out the odd trailer here and there, but I have never checked out any fantasy lore. I have played the Total War Warhammer games before, but that's really where my knowledge ends in terms of the lore. I haven't played them much, so I don't really know much about fantasy at all, Age of Sigmar, anything like that. So yeah, we're going to be checking it out here today, hopefully learning a little bit more, hopefully learning who Sigmar is and exactly what his deal is. As always, I do have paper here, so I will be writing stuff down as I see pertinent to obviously keep that knowledge memorized, because that's how I do things around here. But yes guys, if you enjoy, of course, leave a like, subscribe for more content, and of course leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Spam it every day if you want to see it in the comments, in the YouTube comments. That's what I like to see. Obviously BattleChicken, you know, he understands that type of thing, you know, and you know, I obviously enjoy the retention from YouTube. So of course, if you want to see a video, yeah man, leave a comment in the YouTube. You know, people can like it, people can see it, and of course join our Discord. And if you want to post a link there, you can post a link there as well. Obviously I do check out the Discord every single day, so I do see your recommendations there, and it's you can actually post a full link, versus on YouTube you can't post a link. So do not be posting links on YouTube, it'll auto delete that shit. That's beyond my control, I can't stop that. So do not post a link here. If you want to post a link to a video direct, join our Discord, post it there guys. But yes, without any further delay, big thank you to our members, our Hastati and our Principe Dagenhart. I appreciate you, sir. You guys inspired me to make more content with, oh my god, you guys inspired me to make more content for you guys every single day. Apologies guys, it's been a long night, as you guys know, but yeah, we're gonna get right into this video. So yeah, let's see what Sigmar is all about. Let's just make sure that quality's good, captions on, let's get right into it.
I have, shall we say, given this gentleman his fair treatment over the course of this channel. And by fair treatment, I mean that I've used him to call the Emperor a schmuck time and time again. But I realized I've never really gone into him as a character or anything like that. I've spoken about that Age of Mythology music? And Biggie in all sorts of different ways, but never more than that. So today we're going to be rectifying this massive issue. Sit down by the campfire, make yourself a nice nostalgia cup of hot chocolate, and let me tell you a tale. Actually, no, screw that. This guy's a barbarian god king. Grab yourself the finest flagon of ale you have to hand and get ready to listen to the story of Sigmar Unborogen. Or Sigmar Heldenhammer, or simply just Sigmar. A man turned god, turned even bigger god. This man has seen and done it all. Yeah, this whole video was just an excuse to use another clip of Karl Franz. What about it? Something important to mention first, however. Well, Sigmar has magic flowing through his veins.
So I know who Karl Franz is. He's the current leader of the Empire.
Luckily, there's
in the Age of Sigmar universe, I'm pretty sure.
With NordVPN, the sponsor of this video. Have you ever seen an ad online that offered some service or the other? Probably complete garbage. They're selling nothing to you. But maybe you click on it out of curiosity, or misclick and accidentally select the ad. And now your computer is being shelled with viruses. This kind of thing is called malvertising, and it's a real pain. Luckily, Nord's threat protection services can render you safe from this kind of attack.
Wow.
And some other wonderful things
so
too.
Useful.
I am perhaps just a bit paranoid, you could say. It's always been a faint worry in the back of my mind.
I would say the same thing.
Clown is going to try and find where I live through the internet. Thankfully, Nord lets me assuage these fears. Allow me to demonstrate for you. I open NordVPN, I set it to active, and set myself to be in Germany. Good luck finding my IP address now, everyone, because I now live in Berlin as far as that's concerned. I can set it to plenty of other countries as well. 60, in fact, so I don't think you're limited in your choices. Another feature of Nord, you ask? Why, I'd be happy to tell you another feature. With NordPass, your passwords can be kept completely secure in a vault. It identifies old and reused passwords as well, which is very handy for someone like me whose password management is very underwhelming.
Yikes.
I make a password, tell myself I'll definitely remember it, and then you know what happens next? I don't remember it. Then I reset the password and the circle of life begins anew.
Pretty much.
Since NordPass generates new passwords on top of keeping track of them, I don't need to worry about them either being found out and taken advantage of, or me just plain forgetting them. But I know that's super convenient. Louder than anything else, so how about this? NordVPN's birthday deal is still going strong, and I've got some goodies for you to celebrate.
Holy shit.
With every single purchase of a 2-year plan, you can get 3 months to a whole additional year of service free of charge.
Wow.
And I'm not done throwing deals in your face.
That's good value.
Because with my handy link in the description, you get another month on top of that. That's
wow.
4 months minimum of free service right there.
Holy shit.
https://
3 months to a year is big.
.com/PancreasNowork or my link in the description.
Obviously, guys, if you want to go get NordVPN, if you don't already have it, of course, use his link or use code PancreasNoWork. Make sure you claim that. I don't know if this deal is still on. I'm not sure when this video was made. Let's just check real quick. Couple years ago, so maybe, but I'm sure he's still got that sponsor code. So if you want to, of course, use NordVPN, go use his link, guys.
And if all that doesn't sound good enough to you, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you still don't think Nord's benefits are worth it after that point, there's no financial risk to you. So what are you still waiting for? Get NordVPN with my link in the description below, and keep yourself safe and secure online now.
Great ad.
All right, now we talk about Sigmar. Sigmar was once a man born to the Unburrowed.
Got the Clash of Clans illustration.
Humans and the
Yikes.
lands that would become the Empire of Man. They weren't yet unified, though with this man's birth, that would come soon enough. He was born to the chieftain of the tribe and was technically royalty, though given that these were pre-imperial times, that's only saying so much. He gets the finest bearskin that he has to kill himself anyways. He's not living in the lap of luxury. The twin-tailed comet soared far overhead, signifying the birth of a legendary hero. He was born in less than ideal conditions. By that I mean his mother died mid-birth because an orc decided to take a chopper to her vital organs. She died of blood loss, but Sigmar's father and his bodyguard managed to reach her before the orcs could cut short all of Warhammer. This wasn't even like a Tzeentch orchestrated plot or something. This just happened.
This just happened.
Sigmar, but his mom wasn't exactly having the time of her now ended life, now was she?
Yeah, that's kind of fucked up. This isn't even like some like chaos, like, you know, trickery or anything like that. This is simply just the fact that some orcs just were fucking around, you know what I'm saying? Orcs being orcs, killing people, you know, looking for a fight. Wow, that's kind of crazy. Also, interesting too, the twin tail comet. I've heard that phrase been shout-outed. It has been shout out in Warhammer a bunch, and I never really knew what it means, but signifying a hero being born. Is it just a hero being born? Is it like any great event happening, or you know, what's the specifics around the twin tail comet? I'd almost like to learn more about that. Like, is it specifically like when somebody comes to the world that is unique? Is it a specific event happening? Is it anything in between? Somebody let me know.
I'd say poor Sigmar, but his mom wasn't exactly having the time of her now ended life, now was she?
Definitely not.
He lived the typical life of your young barbarian war chief, prince, whatever. He underwent what was called Dooming Day, a coming-of-age ritual where he's locked in a tomb of his ancestors and sees if they have anything good to tell him. Not having too much to tell him, Sigmar climbed out of the cave and saw that, as it turns out, his father ruled over little more than a bunch of scared hamlets. And Sigmar was not happy about this. It was time to change things. First, Sigmar grabbed some of his friends, who together apparently made a pretty balanced D&D group, and went to kill a big boar that had gotten quite the reputation for killing people that tried to do this. When they got there, his friends all booked it, and Sigmar tamed it by yanking a spear out of its back before going his separate way. This might not sound too important, but consider this. It sets a precedent. Sigmar can smash things flat with no problem if he needs to, but the man is more than just a roid-raging barbarian. He can think, he can make diplomacy. Keep that in mind for later. As for some actual fun stuff though, when he turned 15, he saved the life of the High King of the Dwarfs. Some orcs have been raiding Unburrowed lands, and Sigmar actually shares something in common with Commander Farsight, at least in fantasy. Any amount of orcs alive more than 0 is far too many orcs. But these
Like, obviously, from what I've seen in the Total War games, the humans and the dwarves, while they can definitely fight each other, they more often than not end up working together via trade alliances or just against a common enemy, usually being the orcs, in the dwarves' case, for sure. And I think that totally makes sense. I didn't actually know, obviously, that Sigmar here actually saved the High King. I imagine they would probably, being dwarves, keep that in pretty high regard, but maybe not. Somebody let me know.
At least in fantasy. Any amount of orcs alive more than 0 is far too many orcs. But these orcs had something special.
Very true.
Curvin Ironbeard, the High King of the Dwarves at the time and possessor of one of the single dwarfiest names to ever exist.
Literally.
Curvin saw Sigmar giving the Black Orc war boss the business, and though its armor was too thick for Sigmar's bronze sword to pierce it, he was still impressed that this mere human was going to town on such a beast. So he broke free of his bonds, because dwarfs are all compact little brick shithouses, fought his way to the war boss's tent, and grabbed a special little present for Sigmar. Galmaraz.
Galmaraz.
Apparently swearing the entire time, because dwarfs are known for many things, but elegance isn't one of them, Kurgan tossed the hammer to Sigmar, and Sigmar put Skull Splitter to good use and split that damn orc's skull.
Wow.
Or shattered, really, but that's technically still splitting.
So I've heard Galmaraz as well, and I've heard, I knew that was like the hammer of Sigmar. It's the hammer it's the hammer Karl Franz uses in the Warhammer games, right? And the Total War games, I should say. I didn't realize that this was the history of it. I didn't realize the significance of it. This was obviously the hammer wielded by the greatest hero. Now, was it crafted by a dwarf, or how did it come into being? Obviously, they were in chains at this point. Maybe it was an orc weapon. Somebody let me know. I'm assuming it probably is dwarven in origin, in a sense. But somebody let me know for certain.
And split that damn orc's skull. Or shattered, really, but that's technically still splitting. Shattering is just splitting into a lot of pieces. Sigmar's apparently a polite lad, so he tried to give the hammer back, but in a first that would cement the two races as friends for all time, Kurgan Ironbeard gifted the hammer to Sigmar. The weapon was highly magical and ancient even to the dwarfs, and it's believed that it has a mind of its own and chooses its wielder. It's as if the weapon was always Sigmar's and it was just waiting for him to come claim it. God,
interesting.
That's fucking cool, isn't it? Also, in case you forgot, he's 15. 15.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
I don't want to speak for anyone, but I'm assuming none of us were murdering Black Orc war bosses at 15.
Probably
Anyways,
not.
He went on to murder more orcs after that. One of his friends died, which is pretty sad, but Sigmar otherwise did pretty well for his first time commanding a truly massive army. He wiped out the orc forces handily and returned to what would become Altdorf in glory. His friend's twin brother was pretty unhappy with Sigmar for, in his mind, leading his brother to his death, but surely that wouldn't come back to bite him. Surely not. Meanwhile, the alliance with the dwarfs were giving Sigmar's forces access to such thing as iron. Before that, they were barely in the Bronze Age, so this is actually something huge, especially since the Chaos Gods finally woke up.
More Age of Mythology music. This is awesome.
2,500 years. They sent that armada of Norse.
I just want to say real quick, like, you know, big props to PancreasNowork, his musical choices throughout the video, the illustrations he uses, just his narration style in general. I really like his videos, man. He does a fantastic job on them. I just want to give him props for that. I'm really liking this explanation of it so far. It's a very interesting lore. You know, I do like fantasy. I do find fantasy lore interesting. Obviously, we've been checking out a lot more of the 40K stuff, but you know, I've always found fantasy interesting as well. You know, so I'm vibing with this pretty hard, you know?
Woke up to the hell this dude was going to be causing them for the next 2,500 years. They sent that armada of Norse to kill him stone dead. His father went to face them and killed the Chaos Lord, leading the invasion at the cost of his own life.
Damn.
Sigmar, for his part, didn't know any of this yet. He did, however, know about his dead friend's brother assaulting him, murdering his sister and Sigmar's own lover, and tossing Sigmar into a river as the Chaos Gods empowered him with demonhood. Oh look,
Jesus.
That thing came back to bite him. Who would have guessed? That's also Azazel's backstory, so if you're wondering where that dude from Total Warhammer came from, now you know. All of Sigmar's wins, by the way, seem to be balanced off with the fattest of losses. Having been thrown into a river by Azazel,
another Age of Mythology cutscene right there. Wow.
Everywhere. It was barren and boring looking, and his dad was there giving him a bear hug and helping him kill shadow demons. Turns out Sigmar was on death's doorstep and took a vacation to Mor's Garden, the god of the dead. He and his father fought alongside a whole bunch of unbroken warrior ghosts against the shadow demons and the...
Bro, I just want to say these cutscenes are giving me like such hard nostalgia, dude. I fucking love Age of Mythology. It was one of the very first RTS games I ever played on PC. So I therefore, you know, it's holds a special place in my heart for sure, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like seeing these, it's like such nostalgia. I don't know.
He
it's
and
crazy.
His father fought alongside a whole bunch of unbroken warrior ghosts against
this mission was pretty cool too in Age of Mythology.
His dad killed before his father gave him a fancy amulet and finally passed on into the afterlife. Rather miffed at the loss of his father, even though he got to speak to him one last time, Sigmar was now in control of the Unbroken tribe and slaughtered the Norse tribes nearly to the last. The survivors fled to the coast of Norska from Nordland and became the Norskins, whose descendants would forever plague the Empire with constant raids and sacking Nordland every 3 turns in Total Warhammer.
Pretty
With
much.
outside threats dealt with for the time being, Sigmar went about his initial dream of uniting the tribes of man into one proud nation. While there are various tales of valor he embarked upon here, there's one I'd like to focus on in particular, the subjugation of the Teutogens, those would become Middenlanders of the province of Middenheim. Their king, Arthur, decided he was going to turtle on the Fauschlag, the almost impenetrable fortress atop Middenheim. Sigmar gave him a day before he climbed up there himself and demanded he account for his actions, as well as submit before challenging him to one-on-one combat near the Flame of Ulrich, the chief gods of the lands.
Flame of Ulrich.
Couldn't exactly back down from honorable combat right next to the holiest altar of a war god, and so the duel began. Sigmar was pushed back into the Flame of Ulrich, but unlike Malekith, Ulrich was actually quite fond of this lad. So with the power of the god of winter and wolves coursing through his veins, Arthur was Galmarazed and the Teutogens now a part of Sigmar's growing realm. The rest of the empire was united in relatively short order, and then because reality realized Sigmar had a moment to breathe, the tide of greenskins larger than any other were making their way towards the Dwarven Empire. An issue for several reasons, one because the two nations were now friends, and two because after you get through the dwarves you get to the empire. Sigmar killed one army of them, then Curvin showed up and said, "Hey chief, that was the warm-up." So in preparation for round 2, Sigmar convinced a whole bunch of people to rally behind him.
I like how the orcs are just like the orcs literally act the exact same in fantasy as they do in 40k. I think that's like awesome, you know what I mean? Like they're literally no different. Like you could take orcs from fantasy, throw them in 40k, you would probably not notice a difference, to be completely honest. Like you somewhat would, obviously, just with their uniforms and whatnot, but like if you were to take like a dwarf from fantasy, throw them in 40k, their mentality, they would culturally adapt pretty instantly, I would say. You know what I mean? Orcs are just orcs, you know. I love that, you know. It's pretty great, but also very cool too that like they, you know, the Empire at this point is very much honoring their alliance with the dwarves. You know, their friendship is very much key, and Sigmar seems to actually really appreciate them. He's coming to their aid very readily here. After uniting the Empire. I think that's really cool, you know, and this is giving a lot of context to the stuff I have seen in Total War Warhammer, because again, a lot of the times I've seen it, you know, it's a cool fantasy universe, but I don't know anything in depth about it. So this is really cool to add some extra lore to this, and actually understand, you know, the significance of these places that you see in that game.
So in preparation for round 2, Sigmar convinced a whole bunch of people to rally behind him while the dwarves held the bulk of the greenskins at bay. Only 2 tribes refused his call, the Teutones, who were the ancestors of Marienburg, so of course they didn't give a shit about the rest of the empire, and the Bretonni. Stupid, smug, arrogant, dumb pricks, ever since the dawn of time. And then, year -1 Imperial Calendar. No more distracting the orcs, for the rest of the dwarves had to withdraw to their holds. Now a united army of man and dwarf named Sigmar's Hammer stood at the Black Fire Pass to hold back the orcs, with the knowledge that if they failed, both races would become little more than fertilizer wherever their corpses wind up. The battle was not a complete shutout, but it was beyond legendary. Wave after wave of orcs descended upon the army, and wave after wave was repulsed at great cost. After being knocked down by trolls, Sigmar's life was saved by the king of another tribe named Marbad, who sacrificed himself to bring our hero his weapon. With this, Sigmar was done being a king, and ready to start being Doom Guy. So he took the elven sword his friend tossed him in one hand, Galmaraz in another, and just started ending greenskins. One would come to him, one would die. 10 would come to him, 10 would be sent to Gork and Mort personally. It's unknown if this was an attempt to rally his forces with sheer insanity, or if Sigmar really had just gone off the deep end and started murdering everything in front of him. I like to think it's the latter. At last, he had cut his way through enough of the army that the orc in charge decided enough was enough, and flew down atop his wyvern to put an end to this upstart kid. And then the orc... And
I like the idea too that, like, you know, these leaders... they straight up have like war mounts, you know, not just a horse, but you obviously have like the griffins, or you have wyverns, and you just have different mounts, and you see a lot of them in the Total War game too. I'm going to reference that a lot because again, it's the only reference for fantasy that I really have besides this video now. So I just think that's really cool. It's a really cool touch that, like, you know, each character is very unique in their own way. They have their own unique mount, their own unique weapon, right? I just really like that aspect of fantasy. The fact that, like, you know, and you see it in 40k too, like weapons having lore and whatnot. But the average, like, you know, I guess you could say it, like, you know, the average, like, important character, sometimes they'll have a unique weapon, but a lot of the times not really, you know. But in fantasy, I think you tend to see that a lot more. Unique armor, unique weaponry, that sort of thing, unique mounts. For certain people, I think that's a lot more prevalent. That's not to, like, say, like, you know, Warhammer 40k is bad because it doesn't have that. It's just something like I've noticed between the two a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe that's a wrong interpretation. I know obviously like you have like the sword of the Emperor, and you obviously have like the shield that a Lion has, for example, right? Or Lionel Johnson has, I should say. Wrong, incorrect name. Lionel Johnson has. But like, you know, stuff like that, you know.
But enough was enough, and flew down atop his wyvern to put an end to this upstart git. And then the orc and wyvern died. Brutally.
Wow.
At last, however, the effort was finally too much for Sigmar, who collapsed to the ground exhausted. Unable to defend himself, the remaining orcs attempted to put an end to this madman when his army burst into action and threw themselves into the orc horde. Having remembered that as warriors, they're actually supposed to fight and not just watch their general do all the work, the greenskins were routed as man and dwarf put them to the sword. With this, and one last little ceremony by the Pope of Ulrich just to make sure he was super extra for real worthy, Sigmar was crowned the Emperor of the lands now known as the Empire of Man.
I see.
Tribe was brought to heel with diplomacy, Proto-Marienburg was invaded and conquered, and Sigmar's 50 years of rule
Proto-Marienburg.
began.
Wow.
And it was good. Sigmar even found a cool crown of sorcery, which most certainly did not tempt him with promises of power if he would just surrender his free will. Then the Mercy tribe came back and killed another one of Sigmar's friends. By God, having any kind of personal relationship with this man is a death sentence. Sigmar responded with a small little bit of genocide, just a tad, against a group of German tribesmen, until one of his childhood friends who somehow made it to adulthood calmed him down. Sigmar wept the most manly of tears over what he had done and ceased his actions. Then this scenario repeated itself another time until Sigmar finally realized that the goddamn crown he picked up was screwing with his brain and turning him into a real asshole, as well as rather gaunt and skeletal. I wonder who could be causing that to happen. The remaining Norskin siege Middenheim. The friend who talked Sigmar down from the ledge the first time was killed, because of course he was, and the Norskins were driven back once more. Sigmar decided he was sick of waiting for them to come to him and went to them instead, and many Norsey villages were destroyed. See, I might feel bad for them if they didn't worship the Chaos Gods. It's kind of hard to pity someone who worships the pantheon of Satans. So Sigmar pulled Conan the Barbarian again.
Like it is kind of radical, I will say. Like it is pretty crazy. You know, you can't really feel bad for them because they are literally just chaos worshippers at the same time. Like, yeah, is he genociding them? Maybe a touch, but like that's literally what they're doing to you. You know what I mean? So at that point, it's kind of like you didn't start it. You're kind of beating them back, letting them be. They're coming at you. They've done this 4 or 5 times. You haven't chased them. So it's kind of like, fuck. I mean, it's them or you at that point, right? Like, I'm just saying, you know, it's obviously an unfortunate truth, but it is a truth, I think.
Of Satans. So Sigmar went full Conan the Barbarian again for a bit. He once again stopped short of killing everyone though, which this time I won't even pretend to hold any pretenses about what happens. It leads to more chaos problems down the line. But first, what you've all been waiting for. Nagash wants his damn crown back, and boy did he put up one hell of a fight to get it. Across the entirety of the Empire, undead roses won and assaulted the lands of the living.
I was gonna say, yeah, Nagash. That sounded familiar. I was gonna say, that's vampires? Is that correct? The undead? Because I know there's tomb lords, and then there's the vampire counts, as well as chaos. Now all those are kind of undead, but mostly when I think when you when you refer to the undead, it's mostly the vampires, right? Is mostly what that is. I could be incorrect. Somebody let me know. You know, obviously, I'm not too familiar. Somebody let me know.
The entirety of the Empire, undead roses won and assaulted the lands of the living. Not intending to conquer, but rather keep the Empire divided as undead attacked each of the regions, Nagash himself made for Reichdorf. That's Altdorf, by the way. I know I mentioned Altdorf earlier, but it wasn't
Reichdorf
yet.
I'm
gonna keep calling it Altdorf, though. Wearing Nagash's crown,
that actually helps, to be honest, because I know what Altdorf is.
The undead clashed in a battle rivaled only by Blackfire Pass. Though wearing the crown gave Sigmar some resistance to Nagash's magic, Nagash is motherfucking Nagash, and was still wearing our hero down. Brought low by his magic, it was only the arrival of reinforcements that distracted Nagash long enough for Sigmar to break free of his control. In a desperate move, Sigmar threw off Nagash's crown and taunted him, telling him to take his stupid headgear if he was brave enough. Nagash, greedy dickbag that he is, tried to pick it up and just completely ignored Sigmar for a moment. And then Sigmar did what he did best and beat the shit out of Nagash with Galmaraz, ending him once and for about 20 minutes. Can't really kill this guy. And
really?
Then it was time for one last final...
I think that's kind of hilarious. He just finally, like, after they've been fighting, he just takes it off his head, throws it on the ground. Fucking fine. Just take it if you want it, you bastard. Bends over to take it, completely ignoring. Oh, it's touching the dirt, you know. And while he's like bending over, like full on to like pick it up, like mid combat, just fucking Sigmar just overhand blows him on the skull. Like, what the fuck? I could totally imagine that.
For about 20 minutes, can't.
That's
really
pretty goofy.
And then it was time for one last final challenge to Sigmar's reign. One young man had escaped Sigmar's attack on the Norskins, a man named Morkar. If you've ever looked at Archaon's items on either tabletop or in Total Warhammer, you might know who this guy is. But if you don't, Morkar was the first ever chosen of Chaos, with the combined might of the Chaos gods and their followers behind his cause. Much information on the specifics of this war have been lost to time, but it's safe to say that it absolutely sucked. As the followers of the four marched further and further into the Empire, demons began manifesting on the material plane and fighting alongside the Norskins. At the climax of the war, Sigmar and Morkar fought for 24 hours straight before Sigmar finally defeated the first ever chosen. Morkar came closer to ending his life than any other, even Nagash, but even he couldn't stand up to Sigmar's power. And then, finally at last, the challenges to Sigmar's reign had come to an end. 50 years had passed since the crowning of Sigmar as the Emperor of the Empire of Man, and at last the land knew peace. 80 years old by this time, Sigmar stood up from his throne, placed his crown down, and just left. There was no grand announcement, no passing on of the sword. He went for one last walk through Altdorf, taking in the sights of his burgeoning realm as it grew in this time of prosperity.
Interesting. So that's an interesting concept. So I wonder, like, he's not the Emperor of Man. Like, the Emperor of Man doesn't age, right? But like he's 80, he's an old man, I'm guessing by this point. Like he's aging like a normal human in a sense. Is that correct? Wow. Okay. This is interesting.
Through Altdorf, taking in the
like he's not
realm
special in a sense. He obviously is, but
and passed through Telebheim, staying there for a night, admiring how it was not just his city prospering, but all, and dismissed the remainder of his followers. He kept walking towards the World Edge Mountains and looked back upon his realm one last time. He saw growing cities and roads snaking through the forest as civilization grew far beyond what it was when he was a child. He turned around, never to look back, and walked through Blackfire Pass one final time before disappearing. He also butchered a Lord of Change at the pass who presumably thought that without an army by his side it could take Sigmar. He just locked it up right in Galmaraz. For years, that was the end of it. 100 years after his disappearance, the dwarfs gave the Empire a replica of Galmaraz, though secretly they assumed that the humans would come to call this weapon the real one, since to the dwarfs, humans all have short-term memory loss. They were spot on with that, by the way. While in at least one of the books, Sigmar did indeed have a child whose descendants may very well be running around the Empire today.
So is that correct? So the hammer that like that Karl Franz has, that's actually not Galmaraz, it's a replica essentially. So Sigmar took the real hammer with him, is that correct? And then basically just walked away, didn't mention anything, didn't say where he was going, didn't do anything like that. There was no like, so nobody actually knows if he died up there, if he passed on, what happened to him. That's very interesting. He's just kind of gone. Okay. And then what's happened since is they've just kind of like, the Empire's maybe fallen apart, something like that. We'll see. Wow.
Books, Sigmar did indeed have a child whose descendants may very well be running around the Empire today. According to the official story known to the Empire at large, Sigmar left no heir. He claimed that the entirety of mankind was to be his heir to the throne, and so the kings of the various tribes that now made up the Empire made a decision. They would elect one amongst their own number to become the new emperor, and thus were the Elector Counts born. I am holding myself back from making the obvious, not even joke reference. I want you all to know that. Of course, as you can guess, Sigmar's not done yet. Over the following decades, rumors of Sigmar either appearing to help in times of crisis or him watching over his lands from beyond the realms of men grew in number. It came to a head when one nutjob named Johann Hellstrom preached word of a vision he had where Ulrich had gifted Sigmar with divinity, and the new religion spread like wildfire.
Interesting.
While the established cults within the Empire were less than pleased with this, the population loved it. More importantly, because Hellstrom preached that the laws set down by Sigmar were divine, that meant they had the divine right to rule. So between the favor of both the common men and the nobility, the cult of Sigmar came into being 23 years after his disappearance in 73 IC.
Interesting.
Indeed, the Empire's faith in their departed leader, even the replica Galmaraz began to gain powers it couldn't have had through the work of the dwarfs alone. Also,
really? Okay.
But this whole thing sounds vaguely like the Protestant Revolution, only with more cool hammer gods and less arguing if you can buy your way into heaven or not. As it turns out, though, Johann was right. Sigmar had indeed ascended to godhood, which means he traded out being emperor for an even bigger workload, having to hold back the forces of darkness 24/7 now, which is what he was doing before, but now he doesn't get to sleep. Even worse for Sigmar, he had really pissed off the dark gods over the course of his life, and now that he's a god, they were even less happy. So Tzeentch, in a rare showing of actually doing something important in fantasy, trapped Sigmar in the magical vortex in Ulthuan. On the one hand, this meant Sigmar could do little as a god except empower those who fought in his name and the occasional miracle. Not much chance to get his hands dirty anymore. On the other hand, imagine trapping Goku or Vegeta in the hyperbolic time chamber. They would have nothing to do except train, and train some more. Sure, while they're in there, they're not going to be a threat, but if they ever get out, you've just given your biggest enemies one hell of a power boost. And that's more or less what happened. Sigmar became...
That's very interesting way to put it. So Sigmar actually did ascend to godhood. So that's much like... That's a lot of foreshadowing with 40k. You can kind of see, yeah, where that's coming from, obviously. So like, there's obviously some inspiration there in a sense. Or at least there has to be in my mind, if it's kind of seeming to follow kind of a similar plot in a sense there. But yeah, no, so he actually, again, the great deeds he did, you know, people believed in him enough. He actually did ascend to godhood. And he, you know, Chaos Forces obviously have a fucking bone to pick with him after how hard he whooped their ass. And again, this was just a normal guy, obviously, before he, I'm assuming, passed on and assumed his role as a god. And very interesting too, like, you know, he's locked away, can't really do much, can't really intervene much. But goddamn, you know, if you know, and I'm assuming he gets out here, but like, yeah, they actually just fucking boosted him in a sense if he ever breaks out.
Just giving your biggest enemies one hell of a power boost. And that's more or less what happened. Sigmar became bound to the magical wind of heaven, and now we get to the end times. When Teclis tried to bind the winds of magic to various elves, Tyrion, Marathi, and Slaanesh herself screwed the ritual up royally. Pretty much nothing went according to plan, and most of the winds just went to whoever might fit them most on the planet, except for one of them. Heaven. Because as I said, it already found the person who fit it the most, and it was trapped inside the vortex for, 2,000 years or so, just basking in magical energy, growing stronger and stronger. So the vortex trapping him undone, Sigmar threw himself across the world, jumped into the body of Karl Franz, and went to work. Well, no, I'm still bitter about how they handled Karl Franz's death. To give Sigmar some credit, it shows that he hasn't let his time as a god make him soft. Immediately, Altdorf was purged of the Nurgle chaos corruption infesting it, and he took to the field in Franz's body.
Really? So Karl Franz actually has Sigmar inside of him? Is that correct? Pause. Wait a second. Let me rephrase that. So Karl Franz actually has the power of Sigmar imbued within him. Is that correct? He kind of possessed him in a sense. Sorry, I hadn't realized what I said there. I was like, wait a second. No, that's very interesting. So obviously these winds of magic, I've only heard them referenced in the sense of like, this is where like mages get their abilities from, get their magical prowess from. And I guess this is also has effects on the planes of chaos too. Is that correct as well? Somebody let me know a little bit more about winds of magic, how they function. Maybe if there's a better lore video that I can look at for maybe some more of this terminology so I understand it a little bit better. Maybe somebody should shout that out to me too. Let me know.
When he was reunited with Galmaraz, the real one this time, Sigmar had reached the peak of his power. Alas, Warhammer Fantasy's perceived unprofitability had sealed its fate, and in Middenheim, Sigmar wrestled with Arkan over Galmaraz as the world ended around them. He won the battle for his hammer, but lost the war for the planet. So he sat on the core of the world, plummeting through nothingness. And then he was found by Dracothian, who I like to call Puff the Magic Dragon because I couldn't think of a better joke. He brought Sigmar to the realm of Azir and the forming mortal realms at large. And once more did Sigmar go to work. He began protecting and guiding the re-emerging races of man, elf, and dwarf, and freeing any gods he managed to find. Nagash was first, and though Sigmar didn't really like Nagash, at these early stages he needed someone he knew was strong enough to help him out. Together they fought beings that would supposedly give even the Chaos Gods pause for thought. He slowly came across the rest of what would become his pantheon, sometimes freeing them from a bit of a goof like Grimnir and Grugni, or sometimes just fighting them out and about like the elf heroes turned gods. Together they formed the pantheon of the mortal realms, and it was good for an indeterminate amount of time.
So basically the world ended, is that correct? World essentially ended but was reformed, and now this is the mortal planes. So is this still on a planet in a sense, or is this in like another dimension almost? Somebody let me know again the specifics here. But that's really interesting. That's a really interesting concept. So now basically he is still in Karl Franz essentially, but all the races got transported to this new realm, and now essentially have to start again. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing here?
Together they formed the pantheon of the mortal realms, and it was good. For an indeterminate amount of time, and then it started breaking apart because we still need a war game. Chaos started showing up, the various gods started leaving, and eventually it came to a head at the Battle of the Burning Skies. Nagash was the last one to leave his side, but did it in a way that basically kicked Sigmar and his army in the balls on the way out. So Sigmar chased him back to Shyish,
right.
there was an apocalyptic battle going on, and ran back to find out things weren't going too hot. He tried to end things between him and Archaon with a single throw of his hammer, and then Archaon shattered into little pieces. Not in a good way though, because it was an illusion, and the hammer went straight into the realm of chaos. So with chaos beating down reality once again, Sigmar took his ball and went home. He locked off his realm of Azir for a couple hundred years and went to work on something to fix things. Hundreds of years later, Sigmar threw open the doors of Azir and sent forth his legions who shall know no fear. The Stormcast Eternals, the Sigmarines, finally rallied forth
Sigmarines?
the realms from chaos. Or, parts of some of the realms. But hey, it's progress. And either way, Sigmar now has his own Space Marines, ones that are infinitely more interesting than actual Space Marines. Since then, Sigmar's attention in the Age of Sigmar has been on fighting the good fight. He's been trying to figure out how to prevent Stormcast from becoming mindless automatons of his will after they die and reforge enough times, with pretty lackluster results, I gotta be honest. He's learned how to delegate people to problems rather than always resorting to showing up and beating people to death himself, so he's getting pretty good at the whole being a god thing. Morathi ascended to godhood, and he started preparing to fight her and the Daughters of Cain on top of everyone else, and overall his position in Age of Sigmar can be summed up as getting ready to fight everyone at once ever. He's had limited success, but time will tell if the Stormcast can regain some momentum from when they first appeared, or if they'll keep getting their shit kicked in. Also, in regards to Morathi, he sent the Celestin Prime to deal with her instead of doing it himself, with the insinuation that she was still beneath his time and direct attention, which is just great. My thirst for Dark Elf mommy milkers doesn't mean that Morathi deserves anything but the worst in life. He wants more than anything to fight Chaos directly alongside his forces, but knows that Dark Elves are always bad, no matter when you see them. He also wishes to ascend into the winds of magic themselves, but only after the war against Chaos is won. Even as a god, he always wants to move on to bigger and better things. Kinda uplifting in a way. Even as a god, Sigmar knows there's always room to grow. As for his divinity, Sigmar is the god of the Empire, as well as those who would stand against the forces of Chaos, Orcs, and the Undead. Preaching martial bravery without being a complete moron about it, his priests go into battle decked in the heaviest plate mail to hand. They're also bald. The dwarves, rather than supporting his divinity, believe worship of Sigmar is more akin to venerating one's ancestors, but they support the practice nonetheless for this reason. Elves are iffy about him being a god, though at least by the time of modern Warhammer Fantasy, and the end times in particular, more and more were coming around to the fact that Sigmar probably stopped being a mere mortal some time ago. In Age of Sigmar, he's still got largely the same portfolio, though other races are more willing to call him a god, and he's willing to work with those he would have crushed without a second thought back in.
So which age is the Total War games set in, if I might ask, just so I have a better idea, kind of like what I'm where to place all this. When does the Total War games technically take place? I'd assume it would probably have to take place around, what are they called, the end times, right? Is that what that would be? It would take place in the end times, and then this, that's Age of Sigmar essentially after that. Because I know there's in terms of wargaming, there's two, right? There's Age of Sigmar, and then there's the Old Realms or something like that. Is that what it's called? Somebody correct me again. I don't know everything. I'm not sure, right? This is my first fantasy lore video. So again, somebody let me know.
Though other races are more willing to call him a god, and he's willing to work with those he would have crushed without a second thought back in fantasy. This isn't to say he's gone soft, he's more than willing to put down the undead at a moment's notice. It's just that the gods he has to work with have grown beyond just being gods of his realm. Whereas once his fellow gods would have been Ulrich, Mor, and Tal, themselves just differing gods of the Empire, Sigmar now counts Nagash, Grungni, and the Elven gods as his compatriots. Sometimes even Gorka Morka. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I like to imagine Sigmar learned over his thousands of years that there was more outside of the Empire than just the dwarfs worth allying with. And,
I see.
You know, I've gotten so used to putting in a do or don't for characters at the end of these that I kind of don't know how to end this one. Can't really play Sigmar on the tabletop, because you just kind of win. I guess to wrap it off, I'll just say that Sigmar's a god and one of the premier special figures in Warhammer Fantasy, and naturally, Age of Sigmar. In stark contrast to the Emperor, we not only get to see him in books as a character with far more interactions with others, but he's also, well, a character. At least with the latest writings about him, the Emperor feels like someone tried to personify the phrase "God works in mysterious ways" in the most annoying way possible.
That's not incorrect, to be fair.
Character with flaws and motivations beyond save humanity. He's a hot-headed moron who thinks with hammer first, but learns from his mistakes and recognizes when he does something wrong, be it morally or just in the sense of fucking up. So with that, I guess I'll just bring the video to a sudden and jarring halt. I always kind of feel like I'm leaving critical details out, but I've also always imagined this channel as a primer kind of deal. You know,
that's fair.
The basics, if you're interested, there's more out there kind of vibe. Or maybe I'm just justifying laziness. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that's a completely justifiable
with several people calling me slurs in it. So either way, I can now rest content knowing I've made it to the big time in the Warhammer community.
Goddamn.
Thank you, of course, to my wonderful channel members. You are the Empire to my Sigmar. I may have created this abomination of a channel, but you all keep it going. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching and take care out there.
Big shout out to his members, man. It really does help creators a lot.
I'm not going to make a Rule 34 joke this time. This is an actual observation. Sigmar is basically Charlemagne. If the Empire being the Holy Roman Empire wasn't obvious enough, Sigmar's a Germanic warlord.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Into one power. It's just that unlike Charlemagne, Sigmar's realm actually held together, and unlike the Holy Roman Empire, the Empire of Men actually mattered. Its name also isn't a lie, it's an Empire of Men, compared to the not terribly holy, not at all Roman, not really an empire. I mean, I guess Sigmar's empire wasn't terribly imperialistic a lot at the time, and was more concerned with staying alive in the face of everything on the planet trying to kill it, but hey, 2 out of 3 is better than 0 out of 3.
That's true. Well, guys, that was an awesome video. That was Sigmar, Hero, God, Barbarian by PancreasNowork here on YouTube. I thought that was a great video, a great primer video, trying to basically get you interested in the lore, obviously. Again, I'm assuming basically Warhammer 2.3 must take place pre-end times, during the end times, I'm assuming. And then Age of Sigmar is after. I know nothing about Age of Sigmar. I know nothing about that. Let me know what you guys are more interested in. I think a lot more people are interested in pre-end times or end times themselves. Mortal Realms, is that what they're called? Again, I'm not too certain. Somebody let me know. Yeah, no, I thought this was a great video, a great primer video, and I do find the fantasy concepts very, very interesting. I will say it's not something I dislike by any means. So yes, guys, if you have any more recommendations, of course, leave them in the comments down below. Come on down, join our Discord. If you want to leave a link, feel free to post that link in the Discord. Do not do it on YouTube. Your comment will get deleted. That's not me. That is YouTube. I just want to reiterate that, okay? Yes, guys, leave a like, subscribe for more content from me if you enjoyed, and big shout out to all of our members, all the Hastati, and our Principe Dagenhart. I appreciate you, sir. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day, of course. And with that, guys, this has been Centurion, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.